Today, Hong Kong's courts ruled that Jimmy Lai was guilty of foreign collusion under the national security law which Beijing imposed on the city 5 years ago. They also found him guilty of conspiring to publish seditious materials. Jimmy Lai is a British citizen. He has been targeted by the Chinese and Hong Kong governments for peacefully exercising his right to freedom of expression. This was a politically motivated prosecution, which I strongly condemn. Jimmy Lai now faces the prospect of a sentence which, for a man of 78 years, could mean the rest of his life in prison. I call again for Jimmy Lai's immediate release. On my instruction, the Foreign Office has today summoned the Chinese ambassador to underline our position in the strongest terms. My acting Consul General was present at court to bear witness today. And for many in this House and for the large diaspora community living in the UK, it is heartbreaking that such a violation of a British man's rights could occur in Hong Kong, because the Hong Kong of Jimmy Lai's childhood was a city where a 12-year-old boy seeking opportunity could go on to build a business empire and then a media platform. It was a city of freedom, and that freedom brought great prosperity. So when the joint declaration was signed by the United Kingdom and China in 1984, both nations declared commitment to that prosperity. And our countries agreed that Hong Kong's uniqueness was the foundation of its success, its high degree of autonomy, its executive, legislative and independent judicial power, its rights and freedoms, including freedom of speech, of the press, of assembly and of association. And these were to be enshrined in law. For many years, Hong Kong was the embodiment of the commitments made in that joint declaration. The city, the economy, and most importantly, the people thrived. And it was a remarkable, shining example to the world of what Hong Kong's people and cooperation between the UK and China could achieve. And indeed, it is partly because of our important economic as well as our political history with Hong Kong that China remains our third largest trading partner today. But in 2020, China began to break commitments in that declaration. Hong Kong's free media spoke out, and they were punished for it. In June 2020, China breached the joint declaration by imposing its national security law on the city, a law imposed on Hong Kong to silence China's critics, a law that undermined Hong Kong's autonomy and threatened the rights that China had once freely committed to upholding. And it was not long before the new law was applied. Jimmy Lai was arrested, along with other advocates of democracy, free speech, and freedom of assembly. This British citizen, this businessman and journalist, this father, husband, and grandfather, has endured 5 years of incarceration. Meanwhile, his supporters around the world have campaigned tirelessly for justice. And I want to pay particular tribute to Jimmy's son, Sebastien Lai, who has endured such pain and shown such determination and dignity in fighting for his father and for the wider rights and principles at stake. I know many honourable colleagues have had the privilege of meeting this determined man who has endured so much to take on his father's mantle, speaking up where his father cannot. The government has continually and repeatedly raised Jimmy Lai's case with China at every opportunity, urging the authorities to agree his release. Yet the Hong Kong authorities continue to refuse us consular access to our citizen for a 78-year-old man whose health is suffering. So Jimmy Lai remains imprisoned despite international calls for his release and concerns regarding his health. Imprisoned despite UK ministers raising our concerns directly and privately with Hong Kong and Chinese officials. And imprisoned despite our repeated requests for consular access, the most recent of which was submitted on Thursday. So once again, I call for Jimmy Lai to be granted full access to independent medical professionals to assess his health and ensure he receives adequate treatment.